You're listening to the Basketball Lab podcast with your hosts Mark Shannon, Mark Clark, and Marco Corona. They'll discuss all the top news and stories from around the basketball world while giving their opinion and insight. Now, here are your hosts.
Welcome back to another episode of the Basketball Lab podcast. I'm your host, Mark Shannon, and I'm joined by my co-host, Mark Clark and Marco Corona. You know, we talked about it last week, we're literally at the finish line. There could be one more game. It could be three more games for all we know.
Sadly.
But, at the NBA Finals, it's almost here. Is it as exciting as everyone was expecting, or in terms of, we thought the goons, as Kendrick Perkins liked to call them on Twitter, from Dade County there, we thought they would be a little bit more maybe up to the challenge. So far, LeBron and the Lakers have seemed to kind of quell anything that the Miami Heat have thrown at them. So, what do you guys think so far throughout this series, with the Lakers up 3-1, one game away from winning an NBA championship?
Go ahead, Clark.
I'm not going to lie. I'm a bit disappointed in this finals. It's definitely not as exciting as I expected it to be. I'm going to be honest. It's a bit boring. I find it a bit boring. And that's mostly because there's no resistance from the Miami Heat. This finals went way left than I expected it to be. I thought it would be a well-fought finals, like two teams would be competing. But so far, what we've seen, it's mostly Lakers. It's definitely the Lake Show finals. It's not the exciting, get your popcorn, wait for the last shot to see who is going to win Game 7, to see who is going to be crowned champs. It's definitely not that at all. The first half of Game 1 was exciting, and then Game 3. That's when the Heat win. Game 3, right? Yeah. So first half of Game 1 and Game 3 has been the most exciting so far, and it's only because the Heat was putting up some resistance then. But otherwise, it's just the Lake Show. If you talk about the Heat, there we could see their three ball, which I talked about in the preview. Their three ball is definitely not up to par. They're not making those threes as good as they should be. The LeBron AD combination is just there's no stopping that those two players at all. And they need to take AD out of the game, completely take him out of the game. So they got to go at him, foul him. Let him foul out of the game, as they did in Game 3 when they won. They have to take AD out of the game for them to win or even get it to Game 7. If it's a LeBron and AD show, then it's over for them in 5 games, and it's as simple as that, because they literally have no answer for that combination at all. They're getting out rebound, they're getting outplayed. It's crazy. But what I was gonna say is that if Butler isn't scoring 40 points per game and another guy scoring 20 plus points, they stand no chance. Or the Heat need 3 players scoring high 20s to 30s for them to even stand any chance or to put up any sort of resistance to the team. Because in Game 1, we see LeBron and AD scored, I think LeBron scored 35, if I'm not mistaken, and AD scored 32 points. That's 67 points from 2 guys. And I think Butler was the only guy in Game 1 that scored 20 plus points. There's no way you're gonna be able to go against a team like that if you don't have a little bit more consistency and a bit more help from the other players. There's no way Jimmy Butler is gonna go out and score 40 points every night. It's just not possible for him to do, because at some point they're gonna take him out. But Butler needs some help. He definitely needs some help. I think game 4, we're game 4. They're at game 4 now, right?
They just finished. Yeah, they're going on to game 5.
Game 4.
Yeah.
So in game 4, the only person that was some help to Butler was the rookie Tyler Hero with 21 points, and Butler I think had 22 points or 23 points. So I'm just gonna say it's been a bit disappointing watching the finals. Definitely not what I expected at all.
I'm going to go in the other way. Sort of agree, but respectfully disagree with your view. And I think the challenge with this finals is, and I think rightfully so, I might state the obvious. If you're asking the Laker fans how this final is going,
it's going great.
Great. This is the
They're
best
loving
final
it.
they've had in, whatever, 10 years or whatever the heck the last time they were in there. I think that the one thing that you didn't mention was, because you mentioned resistance, you mentioned AD LBJ combo, which obviously is, they are who we, right? I'm going to steal your line. They are who they thought we were. They are, right? And I think consistency has not been there for the Miami Heat. But the one thing that you did not mention, and I think we have to give the Heat credit, because if you're looking for style, the Heat don't play style points, right? We saw that in the Boston series. We saw it in the series before. They're not Lob City. They're not, they're not making things pretty. They're going to muck it in the mud. They're going to grind it out. And it's almost like a 2020 version of the San Antonio Spurs. All right. Yeah. It's not going to look pretty, but it's efficient. It's going to work, and that's it. So I think we have to keep that in mind, that this team is not built for highlights, right? The one thing that you didn't mention was health. And I think that's an underrated part of this series. If you're looking at just entertainment value, because there's one guy that's missing and we didn't talk about him, and he's not talked enough about, is
Dragic.
Right?
Yeah. And, no, you're right. I agree.
Now, Bam is a little bit beat up, but I think Bam give you what, he's
what he can.
What he can, all hearts.
Yeah. He gave you a Bam performance.
That's awful.
No, well,
not Bam Bam, but Bam.
Not like that, man. You know what I meant. You know what I meant.
I'm totally busting you. No worries. I'm jealous I didn't come up with that.
Right?
I think that the Miami Heat is testing their depth, and I think that obviously this is where, and I keep bringing this up in every round when the Lakers are involved, where the Lakers have been obviously involved, is they have to impose their will, right? And I think that's what they've done. And you saw it yesterday when LeBron turns it up, it's a wrap. When AD switched on Jimmy Butler, the complexion of that game completely changed.
Right?
And you saw why AD is a top 5 player in this league, because from what I understand, I don't know if you guys heard the same thing, AD demanded that he be switched on Jimmy Butler. And he was going to be glued to him until the wheels fall off. So I gotta give, the stars are playing like the stars that they should be, but I don't think at this particular point, based on, unfortunately, their depth or lack thereof because of circumstances due to health, the Miami Heat right now are basically just gonna have to make this ugly, make this, a street fight. And I don't know if they have enough punches left. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think everybody, most people were expecting at least, a little bit more of a fight. But like you said, Marco, losing Bam early on, in the series, Dragic early in the series, that changes, those are 2 key players for the Miami Heat. You're not talking about bench players. You're talking about players that are in their starting lineup or guys that have impacts in a game. You know what I mean?
But mind you, they still won a game without those 2 players, though.
That's my point.
Right.
Right, 100 for sure. But at the end of the day, you're not good. You're missing star players, key players on your roster. You can't rely on Jimmy Butler and Tyler Hero to win games for you every single game. And we said it before, the Miami Heat are a scoring by committee type team. They're not a team that's going to wow you with, like you're not going to put up, Jimmy Butler's not going to put up 40 points every game, like you said, Mark. Bam Adebayo's got to put up some points, got to get on the boards, got to get on the glass, which he did the last game. Goran Dragic is another guy. His 3-point shooting is he doesn't get talked about enough. He's good on the pick and roll, great on the pick and roll. You've got Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero, all these guys that can shoot the three, but
Crowder.
Right, you're asking them to take their level, their game from here up to here in the NBA Finals because they have to fill in those shoes of Goran Dragic, of Bam Adebayo. And it's a lot to ask when you're going up against arguably one of the best centers in the NBA right now, arguably one of the best players to ever play in the NBA. And you're talking about in the NBA Finals. It's not the first round, second round, third round. You're talking about the NBA Finals in probably, like I said last week, one of the hardest playoffs that any team has had to play, with the mental side of it. Jimmy Butler, he's held his own. He's stepped up when he's needed to step up in terms of, in the games. He's not, he was, I think a rebound or an assist away from a triple-double last game. You can't ask much more from Jimmy Butler. Like, he's given you everything he can to help this team try and win a championship. I just don't think it's enough. LeBron James is just LeBron James. We talk about it all the time. Playoff LeBron is a different LeBron James. Coming into the bubble, he struggled. The first round, he wasn't shooting the ball that well. He's still not shooting the ball as great, but he's putting up points. He's getting to the basket. He's getting to the foul line. He's doing what LeBron James normally does. Anthony Davis is getting those mismatches. Like we said, they're mismatch hunting. They're getting those mismatches. They're switching on to Tyler Hero, switching on to Kelly Olynyk, and taking advantage of that. And Anthony Davis is putting in work. At the end of the day, that's what's going on right now. Friday night's going to be a tough game. I think the Lakers edge it out, and I think they close it out. I think they've got LeBron James, no matter what Kyrie says about not playing, with a closer. LeBron James is going to close that series out. At the end of this, LeBron James is closing this out on Friday, and the NBA Finals is over. And
I just want to jump in. Sorry, Mark.
Yeah.
Remind everybody who is listening and watching, or who will do so. According to my book here, you guys had both. Actually, let's see here. Shannon had the Lakers in 7.
Yeah.
And Clark, you had Miami in 7.
Yeah.
So you, Clark, better hope that Friday night, with the Mamba jerseys, by the way, from
exactly,
according to my sources, I think it's a wrap.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a wrap too on Friday. It's clear the Lakers are the better team here. They're the
right. I think that they were always the better team, right? And I think basketball is always predicated on matchups, right? And sometimes it's not who you play, but when you play them as well.
Yep.
And unfortunately for the Miami Heat, we are always going to have, I don't think we're going to doubt the fact that the Lakers would have won this series, but how would the complexion of this series have been if Dragic doesn't get hurt, if Bam wasn't, beat up and, maybe at 80%, which is probably better than most players in the NBA, because right now he just gives you heart and hustle, and that's all you ask, right? But does that mean that the Lakers would have lost the series? I don't think so. I think that then we get closer to your prediction, which is, Lakers in 7. But I think considering all things now and being up 3-1 and trying to close this series out, I don't think LBJ is going to want an extra day, right, of playing time, another game. I don't think he wants to extend this past 6. I think you got to put your foot on their throat and put this one to bed, baby.
Yeah.
Well, you got to go ahead, Mark.
No, I'm just, LeBron James, there's always been questions about how he deals with the pressure in terms of closing out series, right? We've seen it before when he's had 3-1 leads. But at the end of the day, we're talking about LeBron James. Arguably one of the best players to ever play this game.
Not according to Paul Pierce.
Yeah. And who cares about him?
Paul who?
Yeah.
I didn't say that. Sorry. That's
But that's what I'm saying. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're talking about him, and he's not playing by himself. He's got Anthony Davis, who is equally as talented, equally as a guy that I might want taking the last shot or at the end of the game to close out the game. He's not. He's a guy that you could defer to if you need to. He's not deferring to Danny Green. He's not deferring to KCP. He's not deferring to Rajon Rondo, even though Rajon Rondo has stepped up. Rajon Rondo has been probably one of the biggest stories in this finals to me.
He's amazing.
Influence.
Exactly.
Right?
Like his veteran presence. His veteran presence at that point guard spot has been huge for the Lakers in steadying that ship and riding it the way it is going right now. You know, there's no waves, there's nothing. It's pretty much smooth sailing for the most part so far through the first 4 games.
Yep.
And Rondo he's just been a bulldog at like turning over the Heat too. He's just always going at the ball and getting the ball, turning them over. But even though I picked Heat in 7, I was just going out in a limb there. In the back of my mind,
there's no changing.
I always knew it was going to be Lakers in 5, but I just went out in a limb there. And
podcast is recorded.
Yeah, there's no changing now.
Go back to the files and replay it. We can put a 30-second clip of you saying and just loop it over and over on Instagram. Put it on Instagram, put it on Facebook. Actually, check us out on Instagram and Facebook as well, by the way, on YouTube. And then we can make you more famous now than you are, bro.
And we all know LeBron wants to get it done. He wants to get it done as soon as possible. There's no way he's gonna make the Heat win another one. No, and he's still got to get home and whoop Breanna's ass. So
you can't give anybody life, right? At the end of the day, like it's. Listen, the Miami Heat win 1 game, and then who knows? Somebody rolls an ankle, somebody gets a late tag or a weird foul, and all of a sudden you're looking at Game 7. And there's
1 game is too much.
No reason for that. Put him away now. Let's head into the off season, and it's a wrap.
Yeah, you can't give anybody confidence, especially a streaky team like the Miami Heat who can hit 3 balls like nobody's business. You can't give them any sort of confidence. And if you let them win a game, the series could change in a heartbeat. Mark might be right and end up with a Game 7 win by the Miami Heat at the end of it. If lightning strikes,
legend in the making.
Right? What?
A legend in the making here.
Yeah.
If they win,
no, this isn't the Denver Nuggets, eh? I'm Nostradamus here.
Oh, so you see what happened? How it all went back to him.
It's a bragging right thing, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Oh man, that's great.
Next time I'll just stick to the obvious and be boring like you guys.
Hey, I didn't stick to the obvious. I went with Denver, and they knocked off the Clippers. You know.
Did you call us boring?
Yeah, he did.
Did I? No, I said beer. I said I did.
Yeah. It's okay. You can't backtrack on that now, just like you can't backtrack on your Heat in 7.
You have to understand that this is all recorded. I'm just saying. I don't know if you understand the concept.
Maybe Ben forget to hit the record button there, but
no. Yo, just keep it with the same series. Let's talk a little bit about Jimmy Butler. You know, he said he came to this bubble. It was a business trip. He wasn't here for just fun and games. He was here to meet business, and he wanted to get to that NBA Finals and win an NBA championship. Like we just talked about. We don't know if he's going to win that NBA championship, but he made sure on that promise of making it to the NBA Finals and putting in the work to get there. Jimmy Butler, to me, and we've talked about it on the last podcast or the podcast before, he's changed my mind in terms of what kind of a player he is. He's a scorer. He's a guy that gets his teammates involved. He does a lot of the things that you need to do from a star elite player that many people didn't think that he could do. You thought he was just a scorer, an elite scorer, but he, like I said, almost triple-double last game. He's been able to get this team of sort of, misfits, so to speak, together and put them to an NBA Finals. What do you guys think about Jimmy Butler and how he's changed and how he's become the player that he is so far in this bubble?
Okay, so here's the thing about Butler. I think that Okay, I wasn't going to do this, but I'm going to do this. And I hope I make sense when what I'm about to say. So buckle up. Jimmy Butler is who we thought Paul George should be.
Yes.
Right?
Correct.
Okay.
That's fact.
I didn't say the name of the team. I just said Paul George, first of all. So I'm trying to make it through a podcast without saying, that team. So in saying that, I think the one thing that Jimmy Butler was always judged first about was his attitude. Because when Jimmy Butler was in Chicago Bulls, and I've talked about this before, I've been a Bulls fan growing up, etc. Jimmy Butler was the guy who will always kill you. But the problem in Chicago was the team was just a mess afterwards, and basically they made a mistake. And every stop that he's gone to, he's tried to change the culture, and he's very abrasive about it, right? So we thought that Jimmy Butler was a great player who had a bad attitude. And that could still be the case because winning changes a lot of things that how you perceive players. But his play hasn't changed. And that's the funny thing. His attitude overshadowed his play on the court, because at the end of the day, he's still a great defender. He's still an excellent scorer. He doesn't shoot the three as much as I thought he would, but that's another topic for another day. But you have seen the change in the Miami Heat on how they carry themselves. And you have seen the drop off in Minnesota. You've seen first of all, Minnesota drops themselves off, but you've seen the drop off in Minnesota. You've seen the drop off in Philadelphia. And again, we talked about this last podcast, that how he is the prototypical 76er. And he's taken this team and led them to the NBA Finals. It's not going to likely lead to a championship, right? But now you know what you have. Mm-hmm. I'm very impressed because I knocked Jimmy Butler, and I think, Clark, you and I talked about this before, even, last year, how this guy can't be trusted. But I was basing that on what I saw or what I heard, not what I saw, right? And what I've seen now is a guy who I would give max money to be on my team, and I don't need him to score 45 points, right? So if you, and this is going to sound funny, if you take Kyle Lowry and you take Jimmy Butler, you would have thought that they were twin split at birth. The skill set is a little bit different, right? But they do exactly the same thing. What they do what you want a leader to do in your team, just to give you an example. And he'll throw in some chirping here and there, and that's totally fine. I get it. And it's not everybody's cup of tea, right? But when you're winning, who cares? And I think that's what he's done, and that's all you can ask. And he is a prototypical also Pat Riley player, right?
Yeah.
So now all the Miami Heat have to do once they lose on Friday night or Game 6, which I don't think it will, is I think that they're going to get another guy to be Jimmy Butler's, Robin. And I think this team will be a force to be reckoned with for a few years.
I mean, you said it all. There's not much that I could add to that. I mean, as I said, and I think on the last podcast, that it seemed like the Miami is a perfect fit for Butler, or he probably just have matured enough to be a leader.
Very good point. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, but I mean, you said it all. I mean, we've seen it. He's just an all-around spectacular player. He's a great leader. We've seen him get a 40-point triple-double in Game 3. He was 2 rebounds away from another triple-double in Game 4. We've seen him being dominant. He's just like calling for the ball after every rebound. He wants a ball. He's directing the floor. He's just a great overall player. And as you said, it's the player that you'll pay max contract to have on your team, because he has that same hard playing mentality as Kyle Lowry.
Right, he's a hunter, and I think that goes a long way to. That's what helps you win, and he holds guys accountable on that team, right? But he also gives them props when they do well as well. And as much as a jerk he probably still is or was. Listen, I'm just gonna say that this is not a comparison, so please don't at me or on Instagram or on Facebook or whatever the case is. Jordan was a jerk. God bless his soul. Kobe was a jerk.
Kobe was a jerk. Yeah.
Shaq was a jerk, and I'm pretty sure all those guys, and you can go down the line, that they were all winners, right?
And that's just because they want to win.
Right.
It's the mentality that comes with wanting to win.
Do, right, then you do it. The only difference is right now we are hearing and seeing every day what Jimmy does, whereas back in the days we only heard it 5-10 years after the fact, right? So that's the only difference. Other than that, I mean, he's doing exactly what he's supposed to do.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think like I said, it's a maturation of Jimmy Butler. I think, and like to Mark's point, I think Miami is the perfect spot for him. He's got a good coach in Eric Spoelstra who's willing to work with players. And Goran Dragic, he was the guy that people weren't sure what he was. He wasn't this star player like they thought he could have been. He wasn't a low player. But Eric Spoelstra has been able to get the best out of Goran Dragic in his time with Miami. And through 1 year so far, he's been able to get the best out of Jimmy Butler. And it's something we haven't seen from in Minnesota, in Chicago, in Philly. He's been a different player. He's been that de facto leader, that guy that you look to at the end of the game to put the bucket in the basket, to put up 40 points, to take the lead defensively, to lock down defensively, to talk trash to LeBron James, when the game's on the line and talking about they're in trouble. You know what I mean? He's going to talk trash.
LeBron said that to him first, though.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. But that's the thing. He's not afraid to talk back to people. He's not afraid to step up. He's not afraid to say, doesn't matter who you are.
As he should.
Exactly. You could be LeBron James. He's a good, really, really good basketball player. He's a superstar basketball player. There's no questioning that. He puts up points. He can play great defensive ball. You know what I mean? He likes to get his teammates involved in terms of, especially this year, he likes to get his teammates involved. And like I said, he's led a team of people that nobody really thought that they would make it to the NBA Finals at the beginning of the season because they didn't have, nobody knew what you were getting out of Duncan Robinson. Nobody knew what you were getting out of Tyler Hero. Bam Adebayo, we kind of knew what he was, but he didn't really have the shot last year because Whiteside was there and all that stuff. But you Kelly Olynyk, there was a lot of guys that were there that they're not star players. It's kind of like you look at what the Raptors did. You know what I mean? They brought in Kawhi Leonard to complement a team, a cohesive unit of players put together to win a championship or to be competitive. All they were missing was that superstar. They brought that superstar in, and it helped them get over the hump. Look, Kawhi didn't win them a championship. We know that. The Raptors were there. Jimmy Butler's come over here to Miami, entered onto a team that had Goran Dragic, had Bam Adebayo, had players that gelled together last year, and he's just taken them to another step further because he's been that star elite player. I think Jimmy Butler has found the right home for him in Miami. And like you said, Marco, I think if they add another piece to this puzzle, they're going to be they're going to be a hard team to beat coming in the finals, in the playoffs, going down the stretch in the next couple of years.
Yeah, I think that the Heat are here to stay for at least the duration or most of his contract. But Pat Riley will always do what's best for the organization. He's going to always try to get the right players, and he's got the coach already set. Again, to me, they the Raptors, the Miami Heat, they remind me of the San Antonio Spurs. Again, nothing flashy. They just have guys who go out there, do their job, right? They have the right coach. It's the culture, right? I'm gonna say it's not really the Patriots, right? There's no cheating, but it's not really the Patriots. But when you're going into that organization, there's a certain way to how to play and how to conduct yourselves. And that's what organizations like the Raptors, the Spurs, in the past, other than this year when they missed the playoffs, it doesn't matter. And the Miami Heat have cultivated, have built. And I think that's an underrated factor. I mean, you can spend all the money you want in getting players in and free agency and trades, et cetera, but it's getting the right players and the right culture with the right mix of guys that gets you to where you are. And the Miami Heat have all that, and we'll see how they go forward.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you said it exactly. Winning culture. That's what the Raptors have created. That's what the San Antonio Spurs created. Miami's created that for years. think that's what they're doing, and that's what every franchise should look at.
You know who hasn't created? No, I'm not gonna say it. Forget it. Next. No,
don't go there.
No, I almost did it.
Don't do it.
We're gonna make it through this, boys.
All right. Well, I mean, I don't know if we could really make it through it due to the fact that the next topic is kind of involving the former coach of said team.
Yeah.
Doc Rivers, now in Philadelphia. I mean,
or Maine,
right? Like, let's can we state the obvious? I mean, everybody kind of figured that's where he was going to end up going.
Yeah.
Is it the right choice? Probably not. But at the end of the day, Philly made the choice. What do you guys think about Doc Rivers in Philadelphia coaching the 76ers?
Lead off, Mark.
I mean, we kind of did talk about this in the last episode, right? And we kind of did predict that he would end up in Philly at the end of the day. But I mean, shout out to Doc Rivers to lock down a job as soon as he was let go from one, right? Apparently there were several teams calling him the same day that he got let go. But I mean, good for Philly. He definitely can help them more than hurt them at this point, considering what Brett Brown has done to that team.
Ultimate supply teacher, Brett Brown.
Yeah.
I said what I said.
Yeah. I mean, it's good for Philly, good for Doc Rivers. I don't really have much to add about that situation at all.
Okay, so then I'll be the ass in this, I guess. Wrong. This is the wrong hire. They have a. Okay, let me backtrack for 1 second. I've said this before, and last week I believe as well, that obviously, first of all, I don't know Doc Rivers. Never have met him and probably never will. So I'm not judging the man's character because I think he's done a lot of great things, not only for basketball, but for young basketball players in the NBA as far as growth, right? To me, he is a builder, but he's not a finisher, right? And with all due respect to the 09 Celtics or 08, whatever the hell that stupid ass team was, that team was there, and he I don't want to call it luck, but call a spade. And ever since then, we have not seen those results. And Shannon pointing out the stats a couple of weeks ago. I mean, it's mediocre at best, right? I'm not sure what Philly's trying to do. I don't know if this is a hire for Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, or if this is a hire for the franchise to change the way they do things. I still think that Tyronn Lue would have been a better fit for that team, because I believe that if you're going by track record, then he's not the right guy right now as far as winning now. And I think that the Philadelphia 76ers window is closing fast. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care about their youth, and I don't care about
the process is ending.
The process is about to come to a stop quick. So if Doc Rivers is not in the Eastern Conference Finals next season, to me, that's a failure. You can tell me I'm wrong, but I'm not. Trust me. All right? To me, and I said this before, and it's my opinion. It doesn't mean that it's right, but I am right. That Doc Rivers should have been in a situation like the Pelicans, where the Pelicans are on a team that's on the rise, but they're not quite there yet. And I think that he's a teacher. He's a better teacher in that sense that certain coaches have certain expiry dates. And I think a 2-year window for Doc Rivers, maybe 3 in New Orleans with Zion, with all those young kids there, that would have been a great fit. But Philly went with the name. And to me, sometimes it's about fit, and I can be completely wrong. And again, this is on the record, so we can probably play this back a year from now. Well, hopefully not a year from now, because that means that something went wrong in the bubble, or we're still in the bubble. But we'll see what happens. I don't necessarily I'm a huge fan of the hire, but it's not my money, so I don't give a shit.
You basically just called Doc Rivers Dwayne Casey, eh? He's a starter, not a finisher.
So I said that I was going to be the ass. I said that an access, and then you call the guy Dwayne Casey.
I'm just stating the obvious here.
Yeah, Mark had to steal your thunder there.
I was just stating the obvious. That's it.
Wow.
It's the perfect description of Dwayne Casey, isn't it? Like, where's the lie? I'm only speaking facts, man.
You know what? I had not actually thought about that, and that's actually not bad.
It's all facts.
Wow. Wait, hold on one second. Are you saying that the Philadelphia 76ers got tricked?
Hey, let's see. But
I'm gonna say it. They were tricked. They hired a name. They hired by name, thinking
they
that
went with the brand, not the quality.
Exactly. Exactly. You went with Doc Rivers is Doc Rivers by name. We said it before, and I said it before this. Doc Rivers, to me, is an overrated coach. An overrated coach. You know, you can't talk about accolades. I mean, he hasn't won a Coach of the Year since, I think, 2002, if I can understand that correctly. I can't remember 100%, but I think 2002.
Orlando? Right?
Yeah, with Orlando. You know, there was also, I was reading up there in terms, he could have had Tim Duncan with Orlando, but he had this sort of team thing where the family members couldn't, fly on the team plane. And that's why Tim Duncan stayed with San Antonio, and the rest is history. But, yeah.
So I'm not going to make a Paul George joke then, right?
No.
Okay.
No. But at the end of the day, like I said, he's overrated. You know what I mean? Like, he's been to the finals twice, lost one, won one. And they were both with Boston. And he had star players on those teams. With Orlando, he couldn't get out of the first round. The Clippers, best he made it was the Eastern Conference Finals, and that was once. Other than that, it's been first round exit after first round exit after first round exit. And I talked about it with my father the other day, and he said, "Oh, he's going to attract players." I said, "Who's he going to attract? He couldn't attract players to fucking LA. LA. We're talking about LA, the mecca of basketball, supposedly, whether they're that team or not. But he couldn't attract them to there. What makes you think he's going to be able to attract players to Philadelphia, a team that's been struggling for the last few years, even though they have Ben Simmons, Jimmy Butler? You know, they've had all these star players the last few years during the process and haven't been able to do anything. It's going to be the same thing over and over and over again. And this was a bad hire on my part. They went with, like Mark said, brand and
over quality.
Not quality.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They went with somebody that comes with a name of Doc Rivers, and he's this big name person. And you know, there was other players, other coaches out there that I thought would have been a better deal. Would Mike D'Antoni been a better fit? No. Tyronn Lue would have been a better fit for me for Philadelphia because he's a player coach. He's a guy that just came out of the NBA not too long ago. He's won an NBA championship recently with a LeBron James, stuff like that. You know what I mean? He's got that pedigree in terms of that. Doc Rivers has won a championship once in his NBA coaching career. Won an NBA Coach of the Year once. We're not talking about a guy that's won a couple championships, won a couple Coaches of the Year. The Raptors franchise has more Coaches of the Year in their history than Doc Rivers has Coaches of the Year. And that's got to, like, you're talking about the Raptors have hired, Dwayne Casey got it, Sam Mitchell on it. Now Nick Nurse has won Coach of the Year. That's three guys. And Doc Rivers hasn't won it since 2002. If I'm not mistaken, it's 2002. Like I said, he's overrated. I don't think he's going to do – I think Philly's going to be looking at this in a couple of years and saying, oh, shit, man, maybe we made the wrong hire. When they
got tricked.
Right? There you go. See, we were waiting for it to come out. There you go. So yeah, that's my thing. I told you, I think I think he's overrated. I think he's not this great coach that many people make him out to be. Yes, he's a great person, great activist. He did wonders in the bubble in terms of settling the players down and telling them and, bringing to light stuff that needed to be brought. But in terms of coaching, I just don't think he's the best coach out there. Like, I don't think he's the best coach out there. I think that
for this situation,
I don't think he's the best coach for that fit. Joel Embiid, he's already made light of the fact that he may not even be there.
Joel Embiid has 1 foot out the door in Philadelphia.
Exactly. So, Ben Simmons can't shoot a 3-ball. It's like he can't shoot a 3-ball if his life depended on it. To. Right, exactly. He can't shoot. He refuses to shoot a 3-ball. Al Horford's, past his prime. I think I was looking at it. They have, $111 million tied up to Tobias Harris, Al Horford, Joel Embiid, and Ben Simmons starting next year.
So basically the Philadelphia 76ers are the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Exactly.
Right? So they have their money.
They're in cap hell.
Right. They're in cap hell. They're going to have to make some moves, right? And I don't know. I think this is a make or break year for that group. I think they're going to break it up.
Yeah.
And that's the part that I don't understand why you bring in Doc Rivers, because I think the writing's on the wall, right? Unless you know that Doc Rivers is going to withstand a little bit of a retool after next season. The East is not going to get any easier, right? There's going to be a lot of moving pieces. Maybe next year will be sort of like a mulligan for everybody, but the year, we all know which year is coming soon, and you got to buckle up here. And Philadelphia is not, they're not anywhere closer than they were 2 years ago, and I think that's the concerning part, right? I think they've actually regressed. I don't think they've regressed. I know they've regressed.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, hey, listen, that's Philadelphia's decision. And listen, you went hard on Doc Rivers, by the way. Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. We couldn't mention the team, so I had to go in on Doc Rivers. You know what I mean?
Maybe Doc Rivers will go to Philly and turn it around and have a Butler moment. And turn it around just like Butler did
and the thing is,
in Miami. You'll never know.
And Marco, you just kind of mentioned it. That year is coming. Free agency is going to be ridiculous in a couple of years. In the next year, after next year,
next off season.
Does Philly say, you know what, we'll keep this team together for this year, then blow it up, try and sign some of those players like Giannis, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, all these guys that come out into the thing. Will they be able to sign them? Probably not.
Nobody wants to sign Paul
But that's
George.
what I'm saying. Probably not. But those guys come
off P.
Right, playoff P. Come on,
way
man.
off P.
Don't get him started. Why would you do that, man?
Come on, man.
Oh,
man. No, man. We almost made it through the podcast without saying pandemic P, playoff P, way off P, Brick Paul, whatever. We almost made
the Rock. It doesn't matter what your name is.
Exactly. We almost made it through the whole podcast. And Mark, you just had to ruin it.
Way to go, Mark.
Hey, I'm not the one that said pandemic P, okay? I said way off P. But back to Philly, I think I think Embiid, as you said, he has 1 foot out the door. I think Embiid has his foot out the door and is relaxing somewhere down in the South Beach because
is he in Cancun?
He probably is,
right.
or he's down in South Beach, either or.
Well, if he's in Cancun, we have some people that can hook him up. We'll talk about
maybe Beverly could make him a taco while they're at it down there.
We'll hook him up with some all-inclusive trips, but we'll discuss that on another podcast once we get our lawyers involved.
Moving on, switching topics from the NBA to the WNBA. Yes. The WNBA doesn't get talked about too much, which they should. The WNBA Finals just ended last night. We had a great series between, the Las Vegas Aces and Seattle. It was two good teams.
Shout out to Seattle.
Right? Yep. Seattle's won 2 times in the last 3 years. They're Sue Bird. They're a talented team, but their star player, Breanna Stewart. Talk about a winner.
Player.
Talk about a winner. That's all there is. You talk about a winner right there. She's won at every level she's played at. You know what I mean? And then, like I said, there were the 2 best teams in the wubble. They called it the women's bubble. There, the bubble.
Wubble.
That's what they've been calling it, the wubble. But the 2 best teams in the bubble, they're in the WNBA, facing off in the NBA Finals. The WNBA Finals there. It was a series sweep for the Seattle Storm. Breanna Stewart again. I'll list off her accolades right here, and you guys could jump in whenever you want. two-time WNBA champion, two-time WNBA Finals MVP, WNBA MVP from 2018, two-time WNBA All-Star, WNBA Rookie of the Year, All-Rookie Team. We've got the NCAA champion, four-time NCAA champion, four-time tourney most outstanding player, the three-time Player of the Year. She's got all these accolades, Olympic gold medals, two world golds in the worlds.
Well decorated.
Right, exactly. Yeah. USA Basketball Athlete of the Year. You know what I mean? Like, she's a FIBA World Cup MVP. The list goes on and on and on. Like I said, she's a winner. Everywhere she goes, she's a winner so far as she's coming to the WNBA. She's puts up points, plays good defensive. I didn't even mention she's a two-time WNBA All-Defensive Second Team. Like, you know what I mean? Like, the accolades are just immense.
I know a team or two in the NBA that could use her.
You went there. Listen, first of all, she's got more accolades than the New York Knicks combined. I'm not trying to make a lot of
You just have to bring up the Knicks, huh?
I did. Hey. I'm doing what I'm doing. All right. But listen, she's a great player, and I think most of all, all joking aside, I think the exposure for the WNBA has been perhaps the best exposure we've seen in a lot of years.
Yeah.
Ironically enough, in a pandemic, right? So I don't
know.
Not enough. And I'm going to call myself out here, right? And I was critical of the WNBA. I was one of those guys that always said, well, if you're going to play, go play in the WNBA because nobody's watching. But just like Jimmy Butler, we all grow and we all mature. And I appreciate the fact that these ladies can, first of all, they can ball out like nobody's business. And I'm not even joking, guys. I'm telling you right now, you guys think
they can hoop.
They not only can they hoop, I think that, some of these girls can be top 3 players in the New York Knicks. That's how bad that organization is. I'm sorry. I know this sounds like a joke, but the respect that they don't get has to be has to be talked about. This is not pickup basketball. These are professional women who have trained, who have gone to school, and who work their ass off just like any other professional athlete. And they don't get exposure that they should. And we're not going to sit here and pretend we're just trying to pump up WNBA because we're trying to be funny and cute. The fact of the matter is we have to give their respect where respect is due. And if anybody has, young kids or siblings, they're young girls or somebody who's growing up, this is what you want to watch. The heart that they play with, the fundamentals is incredible. It is incredible. And I think that more exposure needs to be given to the WNBA. I think that the WNBA and the TV networks have done a decent job this year considering the circumstances. But to your point, Clark, not enough yet. However, I think it's trending the right way. 2 years ago, maybe even last year, you could not say that. And these young ladies, these women had to fight and crawl for every single inch of respect that they have earned. Nothing was given to them. So I got to give them a shout out for that. And congratulations to the Seattle Storm. These girls can ball out, man. I'm telling you right now.
Yeah, congrats to Seattle. And shout out to the WNBA because they went through a season without having not one positive COVID-19 test. They didn't have an outbreak. I mean, that gotta be difficult to do. As difficult as the NBA to run that league and finish it out. So shout out to the WNBA for that. And I mean, I've heard people saying like people don't watch the WNBA because there's no dunking. There's no one dunking. I mean, come on, these dunks aren't what define the game of basketball. And these girls, these women, they're balling out. I mean, they're going just as hard as the guys. They're training. They've been to school. They're training. They're practicing. They're professional athletes that they're just wanting to get more recognition and more spotlight. And I mean, I think we owe that to them to highlight them some more and and talk about them some more too. But shout out to Seattle for winning the championship, and shout out to the WNBA for doing what they do.
Yep.
Yeah, no, like I said, some of the players that they don't get as much media attention like they have been now. Recognition during this pandemic. They've gotten a lot more, but like there's star players on there. Ogunbowale, Asia Wilson, Breanna Stewart, Diana Taurasi, Sue Bird, Skylar Diggins-Smith. The list goes on and on in terms of star players. They're the star player that was just drafted, first overall this year got hurt. But she was making a name for herself in college basketball. But unfortunately, she got hurt, and she wasn't able to, play in the bubble and finish out the season. But I think she would have been a talk of this NBA bubble too. But unfortunately, she had to get hurt, and that put a damper on the WNBA season this year, like the bubble coming back.
And I think a lot of the names you just listed too, these are women that I personally think they can play in the NBA with the guys.
Well, you talk about like even Canadian being from Toronto, Kia Nurse. Probably one of the best Canadian women's basketball players to play this game. But she's not just a basketball player. She's an activist. She does a lot more other things than just play basketball. And they, like we've said, they don't get the recognition that they deserve, as Marco said, as athletes, as professionals who have put time and effort into their craft, like NBA players have. They've put the time in. They've done the things that they needed to do. They've played international basketball. They've done all that stuff. Now you're starting to see it grow. More players starting to come from different places all over the world.
Yep.
More women, even being from Toronto ourselves. Toronto has put a bid in for a WNBA team. You know what I mean? I hope it happens. I hope they do get a team here, because
we'll do a podcast from there.
Right? Exactly. You never know. You know what I mean? But like I said, I think that we needed to give a shout out to them, like on this episode. I think what they did in with the bubble and not getting as much media attention like the NBA got during the Black Lives Matter, the protests and all that stuff. True. They made their voices heard. They did their thing. It wasn't shown. You know what? They still did it anyways. And they still went through the rest of the WNBA playoffs, the rest of the WNBA season, and no positive tests. None of that stuff happened. And to that, I applaud them for it.
By the way, for those, and I kid you not, for those people who say they don't watch the WNBA because there's no dunks, I guess they think that dunks equal quality. I'll leave you with this. Prior to the pandemic, the Chicago Bulls were the number 2 team in dunks. Pretty sure there was not a playoff team. The Toronto Raptors were number 15, and they were the 2nd seed in the Eastern Conference. So just keep that in mind the next time you think that dunks equal. It's like home runs. Listen, you can hit home runs and they're fun to watch, but if they're not winning you ball games,
yeah, like who cares about a dunk? Who cares about a dunk? If
we all love dunks, don't get me wrong, but that doesn't define the greatness.
Exactly,
no, definitely not.
Like you said, though, they go out and they have skill, they have talent, and that's what should draw you into watching it. I'd have to say I watched more than a handful of games during the pandemic.
I know you have. Yeah.
Right? And like, I've like I said, I found it exciting. Sabrina Ionescu, unfortunately, like I said, I was talking about her and the injury. Unfortunately, she got injured and it put a little bit of bad news on the WNBA in terms of their comeback. But other players stepped up. Like I said, there's Diana Taurasi, you've got Sue Bird. I've listed off these names already. Breanna Stewart. There's just a ton of players that have stepped up and put the WNBA on the map. And I think going forward, if I'm the national TV media, we've seen it with other sports, soccer, hockey, a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
The game is growing, and if the national media, I'm putting a little bit more effort into that, growing that game for younger women, younger girls who want to play in the NBA or play in the WNBA.
Agreed.
Yeah, we gotta also hold ourselves accountable too, because it starts from here.
Yeah.
We gotta use our medium to talk about the WNBA some more,
Yeah.
bring that spotlight and that attention to them some more. So, I mean, we just gotta continue doing what we're doing now, and hopefully other people will, because these women definitely do deserve to be highlighted, to be shown, and deserve the recognition that they should have.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I agree with that. And we will do our part. And again, we are not going to pretend to, be complete experts, but we love basketball. We love watching quality basketball, and these ladies perform their ass off. And listen, we are going to appreciate what they do on the court, and hopefully everybody else starts, putting some respect
on their
on
names.
the WNBA.
Yep. I agree with you.
Facts.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Basketball Lab podcast. Thanks for joining us this week on the Basketball Lab podcast. Make sure to follow us on our social media. You could follow us on Instagram and Twitter at the B-Ball Lab. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Basketball Lab Podcast, and you could also find us on iTunes, Spotify, and Amazon Music.